It was just past 9 a.m. on a calm Tuesday morning in early 1993 when John Matthews and his young daughter, Emily, pulled into the small, brick police station in their faded blue sedan. The town was quiet, almost sleepy, with only a few early commuters passing by. John's hands gripped the steering wheel tightly, knuckles white, and his eyes darted nervously to the side mirrors as if he feared being followed. Emily, clutching a worn teddy bear in one arm, looked up at him with wide, worried eyes, sensing her father's tension but unsure why. Locals later described the scene as ordinary on the surface, but heavy with unease. The moment they stepped out of the car, there was an almost tangible sense of urgency in their movements. John held the car door open for Emily and whispered something to her, though no one could hear what he said. Witnesses later recalled that his voice had an unusual edge, a kind of quiet panic that immediately caught attention. Emily walked closely beside him, her small hand barely visible in his. The pair's synchronized steps and the hurried glances John cast over his shoulder made them appear more like fugitives than citizens seeking help. When they entered the police station, the receptionist, a young officer named Carol Jenkins, recalled the scene vividly. John approached the front desk with a polite nod but eyes that didn't meet hers fully. His voice was low and hurried as he requested to speak with an officer immediately. Emily stayed behind him, peeking around his legs, her expression a mix of fear and confusion. Carol later said she had never seen anyone look so anxious just to report an incident. It was unlike anything she had encountered in her years at the station. The officers on duty tried to assess the situation quickly, expecting perhaps a domestic dispute or a minor neighborhood issue. John insisted on speaking to someone privately, his tone bordering on desperation. Meanwhile, Emily clung to her father's side, glancing at the officers nervously. People who would later recount the events always mentioned the way John's movements suggested he was both protecting his daughter and hiding something. Every step seemed calculated, careful, yet frenzied, like he was walking a tightrope between safety and danger. By the time they reached the waiting area, John and Emily were already drawing subtle attention. A few locals in line noticed John checking the entrance repeatedly, as if expecting someone, or something, to follow them inside. Emily's grip on her teddy bear tightened, and she kept glancing over at her father with silent questions he could not answer. The station, a building meant to be a sanctuary for safety, suddenly felt ominous, almost foreboding, as if the walls themselves were aware of the secret tension that clung to the father and daughter. Nobody could have predicted that within the next few minutes, they would vanish completely, leaving behind a puzzle that would haunt the town for decades. The Matthews' last confirmed sighting was eerily ordinary, almost deceptively so. Neighbors across the street reported seeing John and Emily step out of their car in the station's parking lot, moving toward the entrance with a sense of purpose. John's posture was straight but tense, shoulders slightly hunched as if carrying an invisible weight. Emily clutched her father's hand, her small frame almost swallowed by his shadow. To any casual observer, it looked like a routine visit to report something mundane, but there was an underlying unease that no one could explain at the time. Witnesses described John's movements as meticulous, almost calculated. He kept checking the lot behind him, as though expecting someone, or something, to appear at any moment. Emily followed closely, her eyes darting nervously to the edges of the parking lot, occasionally pausing to glance at the street. One neighbor, watering his lawn, swore that John whispered to Emily in a tone so low it was barely audible, yet it carried a strange urgency that sent chills down the spine. The father and daughter entered the station, and that was the last time anyone saw them in public. Inside the station, the trail went cold almost immediately. Security cameras were nearly non-existent in 1993, and this rural Ohio station had none. The only official acknowledgement of their presence was a brief receptionist's note. John Matthews and Emily here for questioning about a neighbor dispute. That single note became the cornerstone of the investigation, yet it raised more questions than it answered. How could two people simply disappear from a place meant to provide safety and oversight? Where could they have gone without being noticed? Even the station staff struggled to recall details. Officers on duty remembered John asking to speak privately with someone off the record, a request that, under normal circumstances, would not raise alarm. But with the unusual tension in his voice and the way he scanned the room constantly, the officers sensed something deeply unsettling. Emily, normally talkative and curious, remained unusually quiet, sticking close to her father. This silence, combined with John's anxious glances, made everyone in the room feel the weight of a hidden urgency, though nobody knew what it was. Outside, a few locals lingered in the parking lot, wondering why the father and daughter seemed so preoccupied. Some claimed they saw John pause at the threshold, as if reconsidering whether to step fully inside, before finally disappearing from sight. Within the walls of the station, no one saw them leave, or at least, no one could recall doing so. Their sudden disappearance created a ripple of confusion and fear, setting the stage for a mystery that would haunt the small town and bewilder investigators for decades to come. When the officers realized John and Emily Matthews were nowhere to be found inside the station, panic slowly began to creep in. They checked every obvious space, the holding cells, the interrogation rooms, even the restrooms and supply closets, but there was no sign of them anywhere. Desks were untouched, chairs in place, and not a single fingerprint or personal item had been disturbed. It was as if the father and daughter had simply vanished into thin air. This realization sent shockwaves through the small station, leaving officers questioning whether something paranormal or sinister had occurred. Local authorities immediately launched a neighborhood-wide search, but the results were equally baffling. They scoured nearby streets, the surrounding woods, and the riverbanks that twisted through the town, yet nothing, not a footprint, not a scrap of clothing, was found. The small town had seen its share of disappearances over the years, but nothing approached this level of mystery. Residents began reporting sightings that were contradictory and confusing, some claiming to have seen the pair in town later that morning, others swearing they had vanished before reaching the building at all. Meanwhile, investigators combed through station logs and phone records, hoping to find a clue. John Matthews had no prior criminal record, and Emily had no history of running away. Officers interviewed neighbors, friends, and even co-workers, but each conversation ended in more questions than answers. The father and daughter seemed to have entered the station for a routine matter, yet the events that followed were anything but ordinary. Every lead quickly fizzled into dead ends, leaving law enforcement frustrated and unnerved. As news of the disappearance spread, the story captured the attention of the regional media. Local TV stations ran segments highlighting the eerie circumstances, describing how a father and daughter had walked into safety and simply disappeared. The small town was thrown into a state of collective unease. Parents whispered warnings to their children, and townspeople began double-checking locks and doors. Rumors spread quickly, some bordering on the fantastical, tales of hidden rooms in the police station, secret passageways, and whispers of a presence lurking in the shadows. The more investigators tried to piece together what had happened, the stranger the case became. Days turned into weeks, and weeks into months, yet there was still no trace of John or Emily. Every attempt to reconstruct their movements inside the station yielded nothing but confusion. The initial hope, that they had simply left unnoticed, faded, replaced by the grim realization that something unexplainable had occurred. For the small town and the officers who had seen them walk in that morning, the Matthews disappearance became a haunting question mark, one that would linger in their minds for decades. After several months of dead ends, the local police reluctantly contacted the FBI, realizing that this case was beyond their expertise. The disappearance of John and Emily Matthews was not just unusual, it was unprecedented. Agents from the Federal Bureau arrived quietly, their presence commanding attention, bringing a sense of seriousness that even the town's most skeptical residents could not ignore. From the start, the FBI treated the case as highly suspicious, noting that it involved the mysterious vanishing of two people inside a government building, a scenario that defied all typical explanations. The initial FBI investigation focused heavily on the police station itself. Agents meticulously examined every room, corridor, and closet, measuring distances, checking ventilation systems, and even probing walls for hidden spaces. The father and daughter were nowhere to be found, but small, unexplained anomalies began to surface. One officer noted that certain office doors appeared to squeak differently, as if hinges had been tampered with. Another agent pointed out faint marks on the linoleum floor, almost like scuffing from hurried footsteps. But oddly, they didn't match either John's or Emily's shoe prints. Then came the discovery that would shock the team. Emily's favorite bracelet, a small silver chain with her initials engraved, was found tossed in a trash bin behind the station. It was clean, almost unnaturally so, untouched by the wind or rain. FBI analysts examined it under magnification but found no fingerprints or DNA, nothing to indicate who had placed it there or when. The bracelet seemed like a clue deliberately left behind. But for what purpose? And why would anyone leave a child's personal item so carefully yet in such a bizarre location? Agents also interviewed every officer on duty that morning, but memories were inconsistent. Some remembered seeing John Matthews speak quietly with a sergeant in the corner. Others swore he never got past the front desk. One particularly unsettling account described a fleeting glimpse of Emily peeking around a hallway corner where no hallway should have existed according to the station's official floor plan. These conflicting statements made it clear that something about the station itself was either being overlooked or intentionally concealed, adding layers of complexity to an already baffling case. Over the following months, the FBI expanded their search to include surrounding areas and local informants, but the results only deepened the mystery. Every lead, no matter how promising, seemed to vanish into thin air. The team also conducted background checks on John Matthews, uncovering nothing that could explain a motive for disappearance or foul play. Emily had no history of running away or involvement in anything suspicious. The only tangible clue, the bracelet, was cryptic and inconclusive, leaving the agents with a growing sense of unease. The more they investigated, the more it felt like the station itself was hiding secrets no one was meant to find. Months after the disappearance, strange and unsettling accounts began to surface from people who claimed to have seen or sensed John and Emily Matthews in places where they shouldn't have been. One man, a retired maintenance worker, came forward saying he had glimpsed a shadowy figure resembling John moving through a hallway that didn't exist in the station's blueprints. According to him, Emily's small form followed closely, and the pair vanished behind a wall that was supposed to be solid. At first, investigators dismissed the story as imagination or exaggeration, but the level of detail in his account was too precise to ignore. Another neighbor reported a chilling encounter late one evening. While walking her dog near the station, she claimed to see Emily's reflection in a broken office window. The station was supposed to be closed for maintenance, yet there she was, standing silently and staring straight out. The witness froze, unsure if what she saw was real, but when she approached the window, the reflection was gone, leaving only her own startled image staring back. Even seasoned officers described feeling a cold shiver down their spines when hearing the testimony, as if something unnatural lingered around the building. A former officer added another layer of mystery. He recalled hearing soft whispers and footsteps in the long-abandoned basement months after the disappearance, yet no one had been inside. The whispers sounded like a child speaking, faint but distinct, while the footsteps echoed just beyond reach. He tried to follow the sounds but found only empty corridors and dusty floors. The experience left him shaken, and he refused to discuss it publicly for years, fearing ridicule and disbelief. These accounts painted a picture of a place haunted by presence, memory, or something else entirely. Even more bizarre were reports from people passing by the station at night. Several claimed to hear a father and daughter calling out, though no one was visible. A faint light sometimes flickered behind the frosted windows, suggesting movement inside rooms that were supposed to be empty. Investigators began to wonder if the Matthews disappearance wasn't just a physical vanishing but also something psychologically or supernaturally disorienting, a liminal space between what is seen and unseen. Each account contradicted the others, yet a thread of eerie consistency remained. John and Emily's presence lingered, unexplainable and persistent. Even today, these witness accounts continue to surface sporadically, keeping the story alive in local lore. Some skeptics insist they are fabrications or illusions of memory, but the sheer number of reports and the chilling similarity in details make it difficult to dismiss completely. The father and daughter may have physically vanished, but according to witnesses, their echoes remain trapped inside the station, visible to some, audible to others, always just out of reach. Every new account adds another layer of unease, as if the Matthews disappearance has left a permanent mark on the building itself. In 1995, 2 years after John and Emily Matthews vanished, the FBI made a startling revelation that shook the nation. Among the files released to the public were handwritten notes from officers who had been on duty that fateful morning. The notes described strange sounds in the basement, faint whispers, dragging noises, and, most disturbingly, the soft echo of a child's voice. Investigators were baffled. There was no official explanation for these sounds, and the officers swore they had heard them clearly and repeatedly. Yet no one else admitted to noticing anything unusual at the time. The discovery made people across the country question what could have happened inside what was supposed to be a secure, controlled environment. The notes went further, hinting at the possibility of a hidden room or passage within the station, one that had never been included in the official blueprints. One officer wrote of a cold draft coming from a wall that shouldn't exist, and a sense that something was watching from just beyond sight. For years, the station had been considered ordinary, even mundane, but these accounts painted a very different picture. It was almost as if the building itself had become a puzzle, concealing a secret that only a few could perceive or survive. Perhaps the most shocking piece of evidence came in the form of an unsigned letter sent to the FBI, allegedly by a former employee of the station. The letter described a room beneath the building, accessible only through a hidden trapdoor in the basement. Inside, the author claimed, one could hear faint cries and see shadows moving, though no one had ever been brave enough to investigate fully. The FBI neither confirmed nor denied the existence of the room, but the letter added a layer of terrifying plausibility to the mysterious disappearance. Americans who read the files were horrified. A place meant to protect citizens now seemed capable of hiding unspeakable secrets. Media coverage at the time amplified the shock. National news outlets broadcast segments on the FBI's release, highlighting the handwritten notes and the mysterious letter. Headlines screamed of whispers in the basement and father and daughter vanish into police station shadows. Viewers across the country were captivated and horrified, with many drawing comparisons to classic horror stories. The story spread rapidly, fueled by the idea that even official institutions could harbor inexplicable darkness, and that ordinary citizens could vanish without a trace under the very noses of those sworn to protect them. Even within the FBI, agents admitted privately that the case was unlike anything they had encountered. The Matthews files included reports of unexplained cold spots, fleeting shadows, and officers feeling watched during routine patrols of the station. There was no pattern, no logical explanation, only the overwhelming sense that the station itself had become a silent witness to something terrifying. The combination of witness accounts, mysterious sounds, and the cryptic letter left investigators grappling with a truth that seemed almost impossible. The disappearance of John and Emily might have involved forces or circumstances that defied conventional explanation, leaving the nation both horrified and utterly fascinated. Decades have passed, yet the disappearance of John and Emily Matthews remains one of the most perplexing cases in American history. Despite exhaustive investigations, no conclusive evidence has ever surfaced, and no credible sightings have been confirmed. The police station where they vanished still stands, seemingly ordinary to anyone passing by, but for those familiar with the story, it has become a symbol of unanswered questions and lingering fear. Residents often whisper about the Matthews disappearance as if speaking too loudly might awaken the unknown forces that claimed them. Speculation surrounding the case has grown wilder over the years. Some believe John Matthews was involved in dangerous dealings, possibly criminal or clandestine, and that the police station was merely a convenient stage for a secret extraction. Others suggest more sinister theories, ranging from underground cult activity to government conspiracies, citing the hidden rooms, unexplained sounds, and strange patterns of officer testimony as proof of a larger, horrifying plot. Every new theory adds layers of mystery, making it nearly impossible to separate fact from rumor. Even paranormal explanations have found traction among local storytellers. Eyewitness accounts describing shadows, whispers, and fleeting reflections have led some to speculate that the Matthews spirits, or something else entirely, remain trapped within the station's walls. Tours of the building, though rare and heavily restricted, are said to carry an oppressive atmosphere. Staff and visitors alike report an unexplained heaviness, cold drafts, and the sensation of being watched. The station, meant to safeguard citizens, has instead become a place of unease, where the boundary between reality and fear feels almost imperceptible. The FBI files continue to be studied by amateur sleuths and professional investigators alike, but even with modern technology, no breakthrough has emerged. Hidden compartments, mysterious noises, and cryptic witness reports suggest that the building holds secrets that are still beyond comprehension. For those dedicated to the case, every lead is scrutinized, every rumor analyzed, but the deeper they dig, the more elusive the truth becomes. It is as though the station itself guards the Matthews disappearance, keeping the father and daughter forever just out of reach. What makes the case truly chilling is the psychological impact it has had on the community. Parents warn children to stay away from the station, and officers who once worked there speak of an ever-present sense of dread. Some have reported dreams in which John and Emily appear, trapped or calling for help, their voices echoing in corridors that no one else can see. The story has become a legend, a warning, and a puzzle all at once, leaving a haunting question that has never been answered. How could a father and daughter walk into a police station and simply vanish without a trace? As the years pass, the case of John and Emily Matthews continues to haunt not only the small town but anyone who dares to imagine what really happened that morning. The police station stands quietly, ordinary on the outside, yet carrying secrets that may never be revealed. Some say the answers lie in the shadows, in the whispers, in the rooms no one dares to enter. Others believe the truth has been lost forever, hidden behind walls that witnessed a vanishing that defies all logic. What's certain is this: John and Emily walked into a place meant to protect them, and yet they disappeared. Their story reminds us that sometimes the most familiar places can harbor the deepest mysteries, and that not every question has an answer. And so, the father and daughter remain a haunting enigma, their absence a shadow that lingers, a puzzle that chills, and a warning that some doors, once entered, may never lead back.
If you liked this video, don't forget to hit that like button, share it with your friends, and drop your thoughts in the comments below. Most importantly, subscribe and hit the bell icon so the next secret finds you first.